So with that, we do have a super duper awesome guest speaker who is here with us today. We have Brenda Torney, who is Senior Vice President, Specialty Lines Claims with Argo Group. So thank you so much, Brenda, for being here with us today. And I will turn it over to you to share your screen and kick off the presentation.
I just want to very quickly introduce myself to you all. I am Senior Vice President of Specialty Lines Claims at the Argo Group. I work in their San Antonio, Texas office. I've been with this company for a little over 6 years, about 6.5 years, but I have about 32 years experience in the insurance industry. And really excited to be speaking to you today. I saw that in some of your introductions in the chat that some of you are studying risk management and finance, and some of you are doing internships, which is really excellent and will certainly help you in your career and finding interesting things to do in the insurance industry or any adjacent industries to it. The truth of the matter is that a lot of people, especially currently, the people in, say, my age group, most of them just kind of wandered into insurance. And because, people don't, when you go to school or you're talking to your friends and family, or, it's just not something that's really discussed when you're talking about what do I want to be when I grow up. And that seems to be changing a little bit. We're starting to see more universities and colleges offering courses in insurance, and some of the people entering the industry do have that type of a background, and that is fantastic. We, the insurance industry is becoming a little bit of an aging industry, and so we're always looking for the next generation to come in and keep that going, because insurance is so vitally important to our communities, to the general public. It's what keeps people um, housed and businesses in business. The whole concept of insurance is the idea of basically, you know, the insureds pay a small known amount on a regular basis in order to avoid having to pay a large catastrophic amount if something happens to them. It's basically like a pooling of money for the rainy day. And the way it, certainly it's not quite that simple. The insurance company's not just using the money from premiums to pay claims. They're also investing that money and basically going, the financial aspect of it is much more complex than that. But as a general concept, that's what it's about. It's the assumption that if a lot of people pool a little bit of money, then the few people that do have some sort of an accident or crisis will be able to benefit from that and not be, you know, end up homeless or out of business. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So this is my slideshow. In addition to working for Argo Insurance, I'm a member of their socioeconomic employee resource group. And so this is a slideshow or a version of it that we've used in other presentations with other groups of people. And I did tweak it a little bit to update it to our current organization and to apply more specifically to your group. And as as we said earlier, if you have any questions along the way, you don't have to wait until the end of the presentation. Feel free to ask. So I want to tell you a little bit about Argo Group. Argo Group is a specialty lines insurance carrier. Unlike any other insurance carrier, we pay claims when the insureds or policyholders have a covered loss. The insurance policy is a contract, basically a promise to pay. If the insured suffers a loss covered by that policy, the policy helps them sleep at night by offering them some relief if they experience a loss that could threaten their business. The types of business we cover are a variety of commercial businesses. That's why we're considered a specialty lines company, because we insure the types of risks that standard insurance may not cover. And therefore, we have underwriting experts who are experts in that particular field of business and understand the risks involved. And so they're better suited to write those types of policies and evaluate those types of risks. So we have some main departments. We have a casualty department, which is basically liability that handles third-party claims. If our insured causes a loss to someone else's property or causes an injury to someone that isn't part of their organization, the casualty general liability policy will come into effect. Some of these policies are specifically deal with construction or environmental issues. We also have a workers' comp department, which handles injuries that occur while people are on the job, and it's an insurance policy carried by the employer. We have programs insurance, which is, it would take me another hour just to talk about that alone. It's its own basically department that deals with even more specialized types of insurance. And in some cases, these insurance policies are written on our underwriting paper, and sometimes we're just acting as a third-party administrator for those, or we're managing another third-party administrator. So it's a lot of variety and a lot of different chains of command in that department. Within specialty lines, which is my area, but on the claim side, we write garage policies, which deal with auto dealerships or auto repair shops, any type of business that deals primarily with automobiles. And there are separate categories within that garage policy. It can cover certain autos, it can cover the building itself, it can cover any damage that they cause in the course of doing repairs, or any issues that come up on automobiles that they sell. We have an inland marine team. Inland marine is a type of first-party property coverage that covers more specialized items than a normal commercial property policy would. Even in the personal line side, they have similar type policies. You may have heard of a personal articles floater. In personal lines insurance or in a homeowner's policy, you may have a personal articles floater to cover, say, jewelry or special highly valuable items. The inland marine policy on the commercial side is kind of similar. The insured would actually schedule a specific item on that policy, or a group of items, a category or type of items on it. It has coverage for a broader range of perils and usually has a limit set by the insured based on the assessed value of that item. Property policies, in this case, is referring to first party property. That's property that the insured owns and wants to protect, such as a commercial building or business personal property. There's also tax liability coverage under the specialty lines. And then runoff, those are policies that maybe we used to write and then stopped writing, but the claims don't necessarily go away immediately. We continue to handle current claims or future claims that are made on a prior date of loss that was still within the policy period that we wrote. And so sometimes it can take years to completely finish handling any claims for policies that we've written in the past. Are there any questions about those different lines of business? Okay. So here are some of the typical roles that you'll find in insurance. Most people are familiar with, say, their agent, right? They go to in a strip center and there's a little Allstate sign or a nationwide insurance sign, and you go in and you talk to an agent and they sell you an insurance policy on your automobile or your house or an engagement ring, whatever it is you're looking for. In commercial insurance, it's a kind of a wider network of agents and brokers. There's multiple levels within that. And for example, there may be a retail agent that you go to and you say, hey, I'm a podiatrist and I own my office and all the equipment in that office, and I want to buy an insurance policy for my business. I want to protect my business income and my business personal property and my building. They would go to a retail agent. That agent in turn would go and contact a broker, which would find the right insurance company for them. The broker in turn would come to us, to Argo Insurance, or a variety of other insurance companies, such as Westfield, Westchester, Swiss Re, just there's so many out there. They would talk to the underwriters there. They would provide an application. And if the underwriters felt comfortable about the risk, they would determine what the appropriate premiums would be and what endorsements they may need to add to the policy depending on the extent of the risk. And they would offer a policy. And if the broker accepted, then there would be a policy in place. And the policy, of course, is a contract between the insurance company and the insured. So the underwriters evaluate that risk and exposures, and they do that with the help of loss control specialists. Those are people that actually will go out and do an inspection of the business to help determine what those risks are. In addition to that, in addition to helping the underwriter understand what their risks are, the loss control specialist is also very good at customer service. They speak to the insureds, either a potential insured or a current insured, and will let them know about any problems that they see to help them have an opportunity to make changes before a catastrophe occurs. Actuaries are the ones that evaluate and manage the risk. They're the math whizzes, right? I couldn't even begin. That's one area of insurance that I've never worked in myself. It is mind-boggling. But if you are really good at math and you're interested in that type of work, it can be absolutely fascinating, and it's completely vital to the insurance industry. It could not operate without our actuaries. Of course, the data analysts review all the data collected and provide this information to the actuaries, to the underwriters, to the claims department, to the CEO, everyone who needs to know and has a certain perspective on the business. The claims adjusters, of course, are the ones that are involved when there is a claim. And their responsibility is to do that type of an investigation. And there's different types of adjusters. Some of them sit at a desk and are focused on coverage under the policy and making phone calls and keeping people informed. Some adjusters are in the field and actually do the inspections. At some insurance companies, they're one and the same. There's one adjuster that gets the assignment, makes the initial contacts, reviews the coverage, and then makes an appointment and gets in their car and drives out there and takes a look at it and writes an estimate and pays them or issues a letter to them explaining why there may not be coverage. So it really just depends on the insurance company. They all have different styles and different ways of doing things and organizing their staff. Attorneys also play a huge role in the insurance business because a lot of insurance coverage and it's just a very highly regulated industry, and we're constantly making sure that we are meeting all of the individual state Department of Insurance statutes and code, and making sure that we are making correct decisions. And if there's Any ambiguity, we consult with attorneys to see what current case law may be in their particular venue. If we are handling a third-party claim and our insured is sued, we work with defense counsel to defend our insureds. If we get sued as a company, that happens too, then we also have to hire defense attorneys to defend us. And a lot of people that I've worked with that have worked either in the insurance, in conjunction with the insurance industry, maybe they work at a law firm but do a lot of insurance related work, or they may actually work for the actual insurance company as in-house legal counsel. And so many of the ones I've talked to had mentioned that this wasn't the first thing that occurred to them to do. It never dawned on them that they could do this type of work. They always had other assumptions about what it would be like to be an attorney. And a lot of them, some of them don't like it, some of them love it. They find that it gives them a better work-life balance than they would normally have if they were handling more typical types of trials or criminal law. Subrogation associates are kind of like claims adjusters in reverse. If we pay a claim, let's say that someone reports a fire at their building, and during the course of the investigation, we discover that this fire happened right after an electrician had been at the building doing some work. That's a clue, right? Because just of the existence of that activity and the timing of that activity, that it may be what caused the fire. So additional investigation is done. We assign electricians and engineers, mechanical engineers if necessary, electrical engineers to help us determine exactly what happened. Is what that person that visited the property, is what they did something that could have caused the fire or contributed to the fire, or can it be ruled out? And if we feel that we have a strong case against a responsible party, we will go ahead and pay the claim because we owe it. We have first party coverage and it's covered under the policy. But after we've paid it, we will turn around and send that referral to our subrogation department, and the subrogation associate will then attempt to recover the money we spent and the insured's deductible from the responsible party, preferably from their carrier if they have insurance, but if not, then directly from the responsible party. And if they're successful in recovering that money, the insured will get their deductible back. This can take some time, but it's an extremely important aspect of our business because it's our legal right, and it's a basic tenet of insurance that it's basically like a liability claim, except in reverse. We're going to the other carrier and saying your insured caused damage to our insured's property. And the reason it's called subrogation is because our insured's rights to recover are transferred to us once we have paid their claim. So that gives us the right to then go and collect from the responsible party. Are there any questions on these roles?
Nope, no questions so far.
Okay. So again, Argo is a specialty insurer. And so aside from your typical, home and auto or just commercial businesses, we also handle things like, and I touched on this a little bit before, the inland marine policy, for example, can cover things like contractors' equipment, which is a type of equipment that construction contractors use. It's different than your typical auto or RV. It's much more complex, larger, more expensive, and it requires a specialty type of insurance. Environmental policies cover pollution or contamination risks. We also offer cyber insurance, which covers the risk of data breaches. Professional liability insurance is for claims of negligence or errors and omissions on the parts of certain types of professionals, such as physicians, um, uh, law firms, municipalities, things of that nature. And then motor truck cargo is for risks of damage to goods in transit. So, for example, if um, a shipper sends items via a tractor trailer from one warehouse to a retail um, area, and that tractor trailer gets in some sort of an accident, and the goods inside the trailer are damaged, then this policy will cover the damage to the goods that were in transit. This can also apply to items being shipped overseas, but um, it would be ocean marine coverage instead of inland marine coverage. So we do have roles at insurance companies that maybe aren't completely specific to insurance. In other words, you'd find these types of roles at pretty much any company, such as human resources. You need people to run the operation of the company because an insurance company is a company like any other. We also have a marketing department. I had briefly mentioned that we have a legal department and also deal with outside legal firms. We certainly have a large group of people handling data and analytics. Our IT department it's probably half the size of at Argo, about half the employees are just in information technology. It takes a lot to run this type of business. Um, we have various financial systems for tracking the insurance claim and any other expenses that the company needs, and just the ability to do our jobs every day. And then
So
accounting and
we
finance.
do have a question, Brenda, that just came in. So Nia has her hand up. Go for it, Nia.
Greetings. I am Nia Mason, a third year actuarial science scholar at Florida A&M University, and I'm currently interning as a risk management intern. And my
Mhm.
question is, what are some of the unique challenges actuaries face when working in specialty insurance at Argos Group, especially in relations to risk management?
The challenges, I would say, and keep in mind, I have not personally worked in risk management, but a lot of the challenges that I have heard about, um, specific to risk management, can have to do with certain amounts of fraud, either or insufficient information due to a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, right? And when I talk about instances of fraud, some examples I can give is that let's say that someone submits an application for insurance and it's accepted. The insurance company does not have the time or resources to send someone to look at that property before we accept coverage. So sometimes it might take months or even a couple of years for them to get there. But we have found many situations where once they went out to do an inspection, they found that there was a lot of information on the application that was inaccurate. And in some cases, it turns out it's an honest mistake, but in other cases, it may actually have been intentional. If we are able to establish that it was intentional, an insurance company can cancel a policy. Again, it depends on the specific statutes within the particular state as to how much time we'd have to give them before we could cancel it. Um, if it was simply a misunderstanding, then it just may be a situation where the policy won't get renewed at whatever renewal date. Because most policies are for a 1 year period or sometimes 2 years, but it just may be a situation where they don't get renewed. Or it may be a hazard where they have to determine if they have to adjust the premiums on that particular policy because something exists that we didn't know existed when we wrote the policy, some sort of risk. So that can be a challenge. Another challenge, the reason that can affect actuary is because actuary bases their pricing and planning based on the past, right? What commonly occurs in the past in these areas under these circumstances and under these time frames, right? And so if they're getting inaccurate information, or in the course of a claim, if the insured is committing fraud or the people they're working with are committing fraud, that skews all of the numbers. And it is no longer adhering to the patterns or expectations that existed when they set those premiums or chose to accept that particular risk. And so that can certainly be a challenge. Another challenge for actuaries is changes in the environment, such as climate change. Many, a lot of storms like hurricanes are becoming more serious than they used to be. And then just in economics, for example, if there's a lot of inflation and the cost of goods go up, then the cost of repairs or replacement increase, and that might not have been anticipated previously when the policy was set in place. So they have to constantly be looking at what is changing in the world in general, both environmentally and economically. So does that answer your question? I hope I didn't go off in the wrong direction.
No, it did. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for asking. So about the insurance industry as a whole, because it is so important, this is why it says on the slide here that it's time tested. Insurance has existed for centuries. It's changed, obviously, with time and with knowledge and with technology and with changing needs. But it basically started because of people wanting to avoid catastrophic events that would ruin their lives, right? And it actually started, the first types of insurance had to do with property being transported on ships. If someone was crossing the ocean to another country and they were taking everything they owned with them, if that ship sank, they would basically lose everything they had, and it would be financially devastating. People who were shipping items or shipping things overseas formed alliances or agreements with other people that they would combine their money to help out someone whose items were damaged. Later, similar changes happened when people started thinking about, well, how can we protect ourselves from fires? If you think about in a neighbor, just on a small scale, if you have a neighborhood or a small town and one person's home burns down, everyone else can contribute a small amount to help that one person rebuild their home, right? But the flip side of that is if everybody's house burns down, then nobody can help anyone else. So one of the theories of insurance is that in order for that machine, that process to work, you have to anticipate how large an area would be affected and whether or not the rest of the group can help the individuals. If too many people's houses burn down, or let's say there's a flood and an entire area floods, that there's nobody left with any money or resources left to help the ones that were affected. This is why fraud can really skew the whole process, because if if claims are exceeding what was expected by the actuaries and the risk management, then they're not going to collect enough premiums or set aside enough money for the expected events. So this is why we have so many jobs available in insurance, because it takes a lot of different areas of expertise to keep that machine running. And that's why there's always going to be opportunities for new generations, because it is such an important thing. If no one had the ability to protect their investments, um, it would create just great risks of failure.
Absolutely. And I did see a hand go up. So Nancy, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my camera on.
No worries.
But I wanted to ask more of a general question. I know I am in insurance, interested in insurance, but this is more of how do you, or what's your advice into like I have friends that are in or studying programs that are not directly related to insurance or risk management. How do you navigate where you fit into the insurance industry, given the different aspects or the different sectors of insurance? How do you find your place, or how do you find a role that's well fitted for you, even if you don't have like a program, or even if you're not studying a program that's like
Mhm.
directly related to it?
Right. Well, I can tell you about my own experience. When I first started in the insurance industry, um, I had, I had, and this is a little bit of personal information. I had ended a marriage and moved back to my hometown, and was unable to get a transfer with my prior job in that particular geographic location. And so it was like I was starting over. And I grew up in San Antonio, which is the home, where the home office for USAA is located. And I remember I used to drive past it on my way to college, and I had no idea what it was. It looked like some sort of top secret government building. It had, towers with guards in it. I mean, and fences all around. I was like, what is going on here? Um, it turns out it's very well protected because USAA insured, generals and colonels, in the military services, and so they had to protect them. So it almost was like a government area. So when I moved back to my hometown, I thought, I wonder if I could get a job there. And I went and applied and got a job really at the very lowest level you could possibly get into insurance, um, which was it was a call center, where we took the incoming claims, recorded them, and it was nights, weekends, and holidays, so it wasn't just the lowest level, but also the worst possible hours to work. But that's how I got my foot in the door. And when you're taking um, reports of new claims and you're getting taught what questions to ask them to set
Mhm.
up the initial claims, you start to learn a little bit about what's important, what isn't. You start to learn about the theory of liability, understand the idea of negligence. And so when I would see job postings for insurance adjusters, for the desk adjusters, after about a year and a half of working in the call center, I started applying for those adjuster jobs, and I
Yeah.
was able to get one. And then the insurance company sent me to a course to get my adjuster's license in Texas, which, by the way, is reciprocal in most states. So if you ever want to get an adjuster's license, that's a good place to start. The um, and just to explain a little bit, what do I mean by reciprocal? In some states, if you have a Texas adjuster's license, they won't make you take another test or jump through a lot of hoops to get a license in their state. Once you have a Texas license, all you have to do is pay their fee, and they will give you a license in their state. And there's a couple of states that are like that. A few states will require you to take their own courses and take their own tests. Like, for example, the state of New York makes you take a separate test and pay separate fees. The once I got my license and was working that job for a while, then I thought, the field sounds kind of interesting. I was talking to a lot of field adjusters and reviewing their estimates and talking to them about their day-to-day work and how they completed their work and their experiences, and it sounded interesting to me. So I eventually applied for a job at Allstate and became a field adjuster with them. And then later, a field adjuster with Nationwide Insurance. At Nationwide, both Allstate and Nationwide provide extensive training. Once I've been working at Nationwide for a couple of years, I decided I was interested in doing quality assurance and re-inspections. So instead of working the claims, I was going out and re-inspecting other people's claims and kind of scoring them on how well they did and giving that feedback to their managers. From there, I became a manager, a claims manager. And when I came to Argo, got to be an assistant vice president and then a senior vice president. So I told you earlier, I've been doing this for 33 years. Not everybody takes that long to move up. Certainly, if you have a certain type of degree, and I'll be talking about this a little bit later, certain insurance designations or certifications, you have better opportunities to move up. As with any company, sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time, because certain opportunities don't come up that often, and there's a large pool of people competing for a small group of jobs. But, there's so many other insurance companies, and if you get your foot in the door and you start getting that experience, on LinkedIn, keep your eyes open. Somebody somewhere else may have an opportunity for you. And, you don't want to jump around every year, but every few years, it doesn't hurt to try something new. And you learn new things every company you work for, because every company has a different culture. You meet new people with all different types of experience. Different companies may have different roles that you may not have considered before. And it just may even be a matter of proximity. Maybe at this company, you didn't know about this job, but then you moved to this other one, and now you're sitting right next to the human resources department, and now that sounds interesting to you. And, it's you got to keep your eyes and ears open and seek out mentors and talk to people that are outside of your little bubble, step outside of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to try new things. And so that's basically my perspective on it. I hope that answers your question a bit.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
And on this slide, it mentions some salaries. This is a kind of on an average throughout the United States, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, but it can certainly vary depending on what state you're in. If the cost of living is higher, some places it'll be higher, and vice versa. It also depends on, your level of experience when you come into the position, or just so many variables. But as I said, there are a lot. There's going to be even more opportunities in the future, because just very frankly, not as many young people are going into insurance. And I've noticed that there's a lot more people my age here than there are people your age. And that's a real shame, but it's a huge opportunity for you, because you'll have less competition if you get into this. You'll have a better opportunity to have a much speedier rise, in your responsibilities and your title. It's like getting in at the ground level and then have a chance to move up quickly, because it's not as crowded as it used to be. So here are some ways I think I touched on a couple of these, but there are internships, which I know some of you are already doing, or apprenticeships. You can start off, um, it doesn't have to necessarily be with an insurance company. It could be at an agency or a brokerage. There are certain universities that focus on insurance type degrees, insurance related degrees, but it's certainly not a requirement. I think it gives you a leg up though. I can't imagine it wouldn't be a huge help to do that. But if you don't want to get a degree, it's not really required. You can look for designations. You can, you know, try to get a license on an adjuster's license on your own or a broker's, an agent's license. Um, that will look good on your resume if you're trying to get, a first time position with an insurance company. If you say, hey, I already have my adjuster's license, that will get their attention. And I don't know if any of you are military veterans. That didn't seem that way based on the first few names I saw in the chat, but there are other avenues for military veterans as well. You don't even necessarily have to have a college degree, although it is preferable. And in some positions, they like JDs, some positions require that you already be an attorney, but not all. And so even a high school graduate can get a job at an insurance company. It just depends on the role you're starting off in. And then again, once you get your foot in the door and start asking questions and continuing your education, you'll have opportunities to move into other positions. Some of the insurance designations you can get include the CPCU, the CIC and AIC or ARM. Those are all from the Institutes is the name of the company that provides those types of courses. I happen to have both the AIC and the CPCU. CPCU is kind of considered amongst insurance professionals as kind of like a master's in insurance. So if you have it's not truly a master's, I say that in quotation marks, but it's like getting a master's because it's quite an intense program and it's highly valued to have that designation. But if you don't want to start off there, if you start off with, say, an associate in claims, then later, if you do want to go for your CPCU, you'll already have a head start because the AIC gives you some credit towards the CPCU.
And Brenda, just wanted to jump in here. Sorry to interrupt, but we do have a question from Sean. He's got his hand up, so go ahead, Sean.
Hey, so I was just wondering, because like I'm a veteran, so what kind of opportunities are there? What kind of like is it just all entry level jobs for veterans, or do they prefer like some other department? Because most of the veterans that like I served with, they're all people like in the insurance business or any other business. They can only get like the entry levels and they have a hard time like moving up. So is there anything that this company uh, kind of does to help veterans out to move up in the company?
We do. Hang on a second. I have a resource, but I need to look for it to remember the name. I apologize. I'll get that for you just here in a second. Here it is. So military veterans can have opportunities through something called EPIC, EPIC, or DOD, DOD, and SkillBridge partnership. And I can put something in the chat here in just a moment with a link. Because the EPIC SkillBridge program provides it provides a way to transition into civilian work, and it provides an opportunity to explore or begin a career in the insurance industry, and it can even do so during their last 6 months of service. but let me get this into the chat just a second. I've worked with another company that has like a 16-week program where they can train military personnel or ex-military personnel in IT positions. And and they can help you get into jobs either at an insurance company, because clearly we have an IT department, but pretty much any company that requires that type of skill. And let me see if I can find it, and I will put that in the chat as well.
Fantastic. And while she's looking that up,
Oh,
are
it's
there
in
any
Power.
other questions or comments? We have about 4 minutes left of the session, so I want to make sure that we get to any other questions or comments that anyone may have.
I just put their um, information in the chat as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then this is the place where you can look for any job openings at the Argo group if you're interested. We're also on Instagram and in LinkedIn. And I am as well in LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And I did put Brenda's LinkedIn profile in the chat box, so hopefully everyone had a chance to click on that and connect with her. If not, I'll make sure I add it in here again. Um, but are there any other questions, comments? It can be anything at all. Oh, your camera's up again, Brenda. It's
Yeah,
working.
I opened my laptop instead of using the one on my monitor. So
Yep, we can see you now.
now you
Hi.
can see me. Okay. I don't know why I didn't get back sooner.
No worries.
But yeah, I know it was quick and I was throwing a lot of information at you. So if you think of any other questions that you have, feel free to reach out to me. I can, as I said, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm going to put my Argo address in here as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I did see that we have a couple of folks that had dialed in internationally. Nissan said hi in the group chat. He's dialing all the way from Nepal. I saw Emmanuel as well, who's dialing in from Lagos in Nigeria. But if there's anyone else that dialed in from outside of the country, please be sure to say hi in the chat box and drop your LinkedIn URL so that we can connect with you. Oh, so we've got Lorraine who just said hi. She says she's all the way from Zimbabwe. Lorraine, would you like to say hi and introduce yourself if you're in a space where you can unmute?
Okay. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm Lorraine, joining all the way from Zimbabwe. Quite exciting session. I learned a lot. I think I'll be reaching out to both Brenda and Tandy for some more advice on, especially on some courses to take and stuff like that. Otherwise, thank you so much for the session. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Amazing. Would anybody else like to say hello since we have a little bit of time here at the end? We have like a minute or two. Would anyone else like to say hi or share any thoughts or comments about this session?
Hi, Brenda and Tandeka. I'm Nisan from Nepal, and I'm a final year actuarial student, and I just really enjoyed this session. And listening from the beginning, I was able to relate a lot of things, especially with the actuarial challenges you talked about the data breaches and climate change and everything. So yeah, it was really fruitful for me, and this is my first time here, in this session in Spencer Virtual Campus, and it was just amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. And hopefully this won't be the last time that you're dialing in all the way, from Nepal. And we truly appreciate, just the time difference. It must be like middle of the night over there. So thank you for setting some time aside to join us. So if you would all join me in a virtual round of applause for Brenda. Thank you so much for being here today and for hanging out with us for an hour. As mentioned earlier, we do host these sessions on a weekly basis throughout the summer. So our next session is going to be next week, Thursday, July 10th from 1 to 2 Eastern. Our presenting company is going to be Amwins, and our guest speakers will teach us how to master the art of the interview. So they're going to be providing us with some essential tips and tricks specifically for college students. So again, thank you so much, Brenda, for being here with us today. This was absolutely insightful and informative. And for all of the students that are here with us today, I will catch you all next week, Thursday. If you're in the US, enjoy the long weekend. Happy 4th of July. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.